Now, I'm usually not the guy to get into drama or the tabloids or anything of that nature, but I do believe that there is something we can all take away from when it comes to this story. Now, Rihanna is currently in the midst of a legal battle. As a matter of fact, I think her name has popped up more in headlines because of this than music or business or anything else, right? Besides Rihanna's pregnant again, those sorts of tabloids, it is Rihanna is currently sitting in courtrooms basically on a day-to-day basis because of what the father of her children, I wish I could say her husband, but it is the father of her children, not yet wedded, is going through, or at least has put himself through. Now, the court case goes as follows. Uh, Her man's ASAP Rocky, who I happen to know. I actually was a big fan of his back in the day. I was in high school when his first project came out, etc. So I had a little bit of an affinity to him. And then all of a sudden he disappears and I stopped caring, right? And I grew up in the midst of that. So I definitely stopped caring. But anyway, ASAP Rocky essentially got into an altercation with one of his friends, actually a part of his collective, ASAP Relly or something like that. Cinderelli, Federelli, I don't know Relly, but ASAP something else. And they got into a pew pew off. Well, actually, Rocky pulled out a pew pew and pew pewed his homeboy. That's the story, right? So the lawsuit is essentially stating that this was an attempted murder. Simple. Rocky was able to get, I believe, like a 6-month plea deal or something like that, which essentially means you plead guilty and they give you a shorter sentence. He said, hell no, I will fight the case. So now he might very well spend years in prison. Years. I'm not talking about 2 or 3. I'm talking about probably a cool 10 plus years in prison for this, if he is indeed guilty. Now, some people are feeling sorry for Rihanna. They feel as if she is just in a very unfortunate situation. She has finally stepped into motherhood, is having a whole bunch of babies, and all of a sudden, her man is now, engaged in a lawsuit. It's like this is something that would happen in one of these hood classic movies or something like that, right? Like you wouldn't think this is going to happen to a billionaire mogul, multi-billion-dollar brand known as Rihanna. You think this would happen in Baby Boy or something like that. But no, it is happening to Rihanna. And those who are feeling bad for her, I understand where they're coming from because she's not necessarily the one who partook in any of these actions, at least as far as we know so far, right? She wasn't an accomplice. She wasn't associated in the crime itself. However, she knew the man she was with. Not only did she know the man she was with, she was actually looking for that sort of man to be with. Now, this is something that has shown up too often within the so-called black community or hip hop community. And then now it is kind of, spread its tentacles into all of society. Is this idea of I need a thug? I mean, it was before hip hop. Like, let's be honest here, right? We had Bonnie and Clyde, and we had, the bad boy moniker, the Wild Wild West, and the cowboy, and he was seen as the epitome of cool and the epitome of what you wanted to be with, etc. Right? So I'm not going to put it all specifically, but it has been highlighted by a culture that literally pushes a message such as "I need a soldier." I don't know if y'all remember Beyonce back in the day. I need a soldier. Her and T.I. I need a thug. I need a gangster. I need not I need a husband. Not I need a man with values. Not I need a man with integrity. Not I need a loyal man. Not I need a man who stands on 10 toes, not in the streets, but instead in the home, in his business, who takes care of business as opposed to handling business, standing on business, right? No, instead of that, we have I need a soldier. And there were some of Rihanna's old lyrics that came up, not so old, but she was essentially espousing how she needed a street dude. She needed a gang. She knew that she had that, and that's what she wanted. And she's not alone in this. You can go in most of, I guess contemporary hip hop, rap, whatever it is, mainstream hip hop, rap, hip hop, right? I think the hip hop culture has been co-opted and hijacked and has become something, folks in the 80s and 90s, at least early 90s, may not even recognize at this point. But nevertheless, you have this messaging of, I need a thug, I need a bad boy, I need a gangster, I need a criminal, I need a dope boy. And this just doesn't relate to music alone. I remember watching a clip that then took me down a rabbit hole of these videos a few years back of these young women, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, being asked what type of man they would rather have. Would they rather have a dope boy or a 9-to-5 guy? He's working as a professional, lawyer, etc., or doctor. Would they rather have the white collar guy, or would they rather have the thug? And of course, these videos probably pick and choose. I'm sure not everybody said the same answers, but there was enough people choosing the thug and even excited off it, and I could see the energy off these individuals that, it showed you the sort of mentality that is being received. And again, I'm not saying this is everybody, but it's enough to where it is worthy of discussion, right? It is the mainstream culture. If you were to look at the imagery that is being pushed, if you're looking at the imagery that is being accepted, because we always talk about, well, the machine is pushing the information, but who is the one that is receptive to that information? Who is the person who is consuming that information, who is willing to go along with that narrative? When you have a Rihanna, to hell with Rihanna. Beyonce is espoused to be, Queen Bee, right? She is, or at least was, the squeaky clean sort of image. Maybe not in the same way that a Whitney Houston was, or at least face value, because Whitney was really on the crack pipe and Whitney had her demons. But Beyonce was not the 304. She was not the streetwalker sort of imagery. She was supposed to be quote unquote women's empowerment, whoop-de wop, right? She was the pop star. She was making hits that still had that R&B feel, but she wasn't the ratchet sort of ghetto imagery. She wasn't that. But yet she connected herself to a dude who built his entire platform off of being a dope boy. Don't forget that. Jay, of course, he became the businessman, the multi-billionaire, whatever it is, but he built his platform off being the dope boy. Even when he cleaned his image up and he got the suits on, it was now corporate dope boy, right? It was American gangster. It was the blueprint. And the blue was still a connotation, right, to blue magic, which was essentially y'all don't know nothing about that. Jay-Z was the dope boy who cleaned up. And B fell in love with that imagery. She fell in love with that ethos. She connected herself to that image. Now, some would say, well, all women just want a bad boy. And I would refute that. I would say women who have, I guess, well, who doesn't have trauma at some level? But I would say those who express their trauma, the more they express their trauma, which is the more they live on the basis of their trauma, unresolved issues, etc., the more they connotate towards toxicity, right? So that then plays into that thug, whatever. That's why if you go into some of these sorts of environments, or people came from those environments, they will still attach themselves to that negative imagery. Men as well as women. You'll have dudes who can only be with a ratchet chick, with a ghetto chick, with a chick that's always fighting, that's always chaotic, that's always got some drama going on. You have guys who become mainstream acts and they cannot break themselves apart from just that ratchet behavior. So they connect themselves to those who resonate with that very same thing, right? There is something to be said about women want a man who is masculine, right? A feminine woman wants a masculine man, but then what is true masculinity? I believe it to be one who has certain level of integrity, right? They say what they mean what they say. They stand on what they say. I believe it's an individual who has certain value systems, right? Puts God first, family or purpose, family, and essentially weeds away all those things that are destructive. One who has self-discipline, one who is able to discipline themselves mentally as well as, physically. If y'all know what I'm throwing, y'all catch what I'm throwing. This is the same type of individual who has values that they're not willing to compromise no matter whose presence they're in. right? That's standing on what they say, a firm, solid rock foundation. That is masculine principle, right? Ambition and drive. So those things can sometimes be misconstrued. Leadership, those can be misconstrued sometimes as well. That's the bad boy because he makes his own path, he does what he wants, etc. But when you start getting into the dangerous individual, a thug, a gangster, etc., somebody who is literally pew pewing, pew pew, a dude who is pew pewing his best friend or supposed old best friend, a dude who can't deal with altercations in a healthy way. Now, again, maybe more proof comes out that he was just defending himself. This was truly self-defense, etc. Okay, but you're the type of individual who has involved yourself with people like that. You put yourself in a collective of individuals who are that dysfunctional and toxic. And then now you're the woman who's connecting yourself to that man. You likely have those elements in you as well. And I do believe that Rihanna still has some of those kind of ratchet tendencies. That's just me. God honest truth. Just because she made songs with Diplo doesn't mean that she's not still bad gal. Bad gal. Okay? But I digress. Let's not get into the tea of things. Let's get into more, say, the warm water of things, right? Let's cool things down a little bit. When we allow for a culture where we uplift or glorify the most negative aspects, we then have daughters and sons who look to mimic and then those who look to attach themselves. And it creates a dangerous environment first and foremost, right? That's on the surface level, at the physical level, a literal dangerous environment. Imagine being Rihanna and those children, and this is the man, and he's still moving in that way. As a grown-ass man, he's still moving like a kid, having pew pew off. So now, as they say, the block is hot. Now your environment is compromised. Now you're bringing that element into the home. Now your children are going to have to be a byproduct of whatever that father's decisions are. He goes to prison. The story is dad went to jail for 10 years. He gets his life taken. The story is dad, was killed at the age of fill in the blank. Do you think that's any way for a child to have to live if you have a choice, let alone being two individuals who climbed out of certain environments, were able to create a significant amount of wealth and influence, want for nothing, and yet these are the sorts of things that you're engaging in, that you're giving your time to. These are the real life consequences, folks. We can laugh all day, we can kiki about this and that one, we can gossip or whatever it is, but when it's all said and done, this is what it comes down to, is what sort of message are we sending? Because again, you and I as grown folks, we're making decisions on the day-to-day basis. We got to live with the consequences of those decisions, but we also have little ones that are going to live off the backbone of those decisions. They're going to one day be able to make their own free will decisions, their own autonomous decisions. But right now, you have little ones around you, and maybe they're not yours, so you don't give a damn. But I do. I care about what your kids have to go through, what your nieces and nephews have to go through, what messaging they're getting. That's why I go so hard with what I do. That's why I go so ham. 3 videos a day. I will give you a morning show, an afternoon show, an evening show, because I want to show up continuously to combat the other messages that are coming through their airwaves, right? I hope they're able to run into a message like this or something like it, as opposed to them running into bad gal and ASAP. Those individuals, just because they're presented in a certain way, well, but they're fashionable, they're this, they're creative, yeah, but they're still given over to this dysfunctional behavior. This doesn't have to be a thing. You should never have to be involving yourself with these sorts of individuals. Oh, but you never know. As a celebrity, you got to keep it on you. Look, the only celebrities you hear about getting into these sorts of conflicts or having their lives taken, unless you want to point to the anomalies of like maybe a John Lennon or something like that, or a Bob Marley, right? Revolutionary. Unless you want to point to those sort of individuals, it is rappers, 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 rappers. Is it not Pop Smoke? Is it not P&B Rock? Is it not rapper after rapper after rapper after rapper after rapper? I mean, yes, in the 60s, 70s, you had, the dope fiends, the Jimi Hendrix and the Janis Joplins, etc. But today, who's pushing a lot of that message? Is it not the Lil Peeps of the world? Is it not the Juice WRLDs of the world? Rappers. Is it not this subculture that has become a mainstream culture. Look, I got no problem with hip hop rap. I love the craft so much so that I became the craft. I picked the craft up at 12 years old, 13 years old, songwriting, rapping, recording, all of it. I've been making music since I was a kid. I done left, came back, but I've always been in love with it. And to see it degenerate even more so than what it was when I was a kid, that breaks my heart. But I'm now at a place where I'm like, look, I'm a grown man at this point. I can't continue to just let this perpetuate and say nothing or just say it behind closed doors. I got to say it in public. Somebody's got to hear this message, and we got to essentially put different messaging out there if we want something different. That's why even the music I put out is completely different at this point. The messaging is intentional. It is to lift your spirit as opposed to get you into that low frequency state where you're now essentially given over to criminality, where you're now a young girl who's looking to attach yourself to that. You think that's not only cool, but you think that's a man right there. A dude who is likely going to leave you. He's going to leave you with a baby. He's going to leave you with some sort of venereal down there. He's going to leave you with some sort of chaos and dysfunction. Might have his life taken, might end up in prison. She's going to leave you in a situation where you all the way effed up. She's going to leave you in a situation where you got all kinds of stuff that you done contracted. You're in a situation where your life is threatened. Your life is on the line or you lose your life. That's the realities of continuing to perpetuate this way of living. You know, if Future can make 100 albums talking about this degeneracy, I can make 1,000,000 videos talking about the very same thing. If he can make thousands of songs talking about the very same dysfunction, I will make thousands of videos or songs or whatever format it has to be to combat this message, to eradicate it completely, to make it the fringe and the outskirts. I'm pushing it to the outside. That's my purpose. I want it to be non-mainstream. I want it to be looked at the same way that being a streetwalker was, 50, 60 years ago. I want it to be looked at in the same way where people look and say, what is that? We don't want that in our community. No, do away with that. That's what I want. God, honest truth, that's what I want. Well, maybe not 50, 60. Let's say we have to go 70, 80 years. Time goes. We're already 80 years since the 60s. So damn, that's crazy. Damn. No, my math is not mathing. I'm tripping. It's 60 years. I'm tripping. That's real life math for you right there. 60 years back, 70 years back, 80 years back, when we could be in our communities and see somebody who is dysfunctional, and we point to them, all of us point to them, and we shame them. And we say, how dare you? How dare you represent us in such a way? How dare you put our family name into such a compromised position? How dare you? No, everybody, the village, yes, the village is the parent now. And we're not going to put up with this. That's dysfunctional. That's toxic. Instead of egging it on, instead of enabling it, we're going to push it to the outskirts. Simple. Simple. So the Rihannas of the world, they made their bed, they lay in it. I wish everybody the best, and I wish they turned their lives around. I really do. I wish, I pray, I hope that they make better decisions for themselves, at the very least for their children, because their kids don't deserve to have a story of, well, your mama's a billionaire, but your daddy's in prison. Your mama's a billionaire, but your daddy is, is pewing people in the streets. Make it make sense. Shout out to Chief Keef, by the way. He was like basically the damn forefather, or one of the forefathers. He's on the Mount Rushmore of a damn drill music, one of the most degenerate forms of artistry ever, if I can even call it that. And he's the guy who made it out. Everybody around him died in either, some sort of violent act or some sort of drugs, or somebody's in jail or whatever it is. And he made it out. He moved to LA and he never looked back. And now, a kid who couldn't even get 3 words out, couldn't even form a full sentence, right? Lived in perpetual fight or flight paranoia, is now articulating himself, well-spoken, and living his best life over there in Los Angeles. If he can do it, then nobody else has an excuse. I'm sorry. Nobody's got an excuse. If a 15, 16-year-old dreadhead in the middle of Southside Chicago who was toting them things in the damn video on YouTube, the first to really have that sort of imagery in the way that he did it, can now clean up and become what he became around white folks in the suburbs who can't clean their life up. And it's not about being around the suburbs of white folks specifically. It's about being a part of a culture that doesn't celebrate those activities. So for me, I say, look, if I find myself in a neighborhood full of, you know, people from Pakistan, Kazakhstan, whatever it is, and they're solid people, I'd rather be around them than the dysfunction and the degeneracy or whatever else is going to be around me. If I find black folks that want better, beautiful. But I'm never going to choose it on the basis of that, because that's how you get yourself in trouble. That's how you get in a situation. That's how you get yourself mixed up in stuff you don't want to be in. You're trying to be so loyal to a skin color that you end up associating with bad company. That ain't gonna work.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising. They see your light shine, that's why they so frustrated. Even the sofa in Nova Scotia will win the bagels. I couldn't get them ease on the grease, why they burning up. Money growing trees, feel a breeze, still you show.